Hello, and welcome to this episode of The Age of AI, our series covering the rapid evolution of the AI landscape and exploring what's now, what's next, and how that impacts the world of business, the workplace, individuals, and the world. And so today we're going to talk about software. And the way that software gets built is undergoing its most dramatic transformation since the rise of open source. Developers today can go from idea to working prototype in minutes using AI coding assistants. And this is a practice increasingly known as vibe coding. But with this capability, and as it becomes mainstream, we're discovering that speed and ease of creation are only part of the equation. Organizations today now are grappling with some critical questions. How do we move from rapid prototypes to production-ready systems? What happens when everybody can code, but not everybody understands software architecture, security, and scale? And most importantly, how do we harness the potential of AI without fragmenting our development practices or sacrificing quality? Those are some kind of big issues. So for this conversation, I am thrilled to be joined by Erin Kraemer, Senior Principal Technical Product Manager, AWS Agentic AI. Good God, girl, that's a long title. And we're going to explore the rise of vibe coding and its allure and its limitations and really get some of Erin's thoughts on what comes next. We'll also discuss the emergence of the Renaissance worker, which is developers who can blend technical depth with AI-augmented capabilities and explore how organizations can build platforms that enable innovation while also maintaining that all-important governance and quality. This is not about AI replacing or assisting engineers. It's not just about that. It's about fundamentally reimagining how humans and AI collaborate to build software that matters. Erin, welcome. I'm so glad to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to meet you, and I'm excited to talk about this.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know what? When two Kramers get together, good things happen.
It's going to be great.
It's going to be great. You ready to dive right in?
Absolutely.
All right, all right. So, as I said, we're going to talk about the rise of vibe coding, which refers to the practice of rapidly creating software by describing what you want in natural language to AI and to AI coding assistants, and then iterating based on vibes. You're right. If you're thinking vibes, it's about feeling. You're right. It's about what feels right rather than following traditional software engineering principles. This is a big change. Erin, can you talk with me a little bit about the benefits of vibe coding and why you think it's gaining so much momentum today?
Sure. I think as you mentioned, it really kind of scratches this itch of I have a problem that I want to solve with technology, a problem I want to solve with software, and I just want to see it working. And so what AI agents and coding agents are allowing us to do is basically just, share an idea. I want to build an agent that helps me transcribe my voice into notes or something like that. And then it just builds it for you. And then you're like, oh, I don't quite like the way that works. Let's change the interface. Let's change the way this works. And it just keeps changing the code for you and building it. It really scratches this itch of like seeing something working. It is really satisfying.
Yeah, yeah. And when you're talking, and I'm not a developer, but I do create a lot of written content, a lot of video content, and what you were describing about the practice of using vibe coding it's not too dissimilar if our audience is using AI platforms like ChatGPT or Claude's Anthropic or Perplexity. I don't know if you've experimented with this, but it is not uncommon, at least in my practice, to put some kind of give the interface some instructions and then get a result and then come back and say, that wasn't exactly what I was thinking about. I'd like you to shift it this way or something like that. And so to be able to do that and quickly iterate and to be able to do this using voice, right? I think that's kind of really pretty cool.
It feels very natural for most people.
Yeah.
This, very interactive, So one of the things, if you have done any coding, or even if, I think your analogy to writing is actually a perfect one. A lot of people, they look at that blank page, it's hard to get started.
It is. It's the hardest part. It's not the writing, it's the getting started. It's like going to the gym.
Exactly. And then you futz over, did I get the words quite right?
Right.
Is this sentence structure right? And you get lost in the mechanical details of writing, and sometimes you lose that train of thought
Yeah.
of the point that you're trying to make. And so I think your analogy is fantastic. Just like we get that benefit with these, LLMs for writing, they're also amazingly good at this for coding, where I don't have to lose the thread of my imagination to see if my idea pans out technically. So for myself, I used to be a software developer. I haven't written production code in a really long time,
Yeah.
and my syntax is amazingly rusty. But I'm building software again. It's so much fun, because I know how to architect software and things like that, but I don't remember Python off the top of
Right.
my head. I just don't,
Right.
and it's great.
Well, and that's really where sort of natural language as the primary interface levels the playing field for everybody,
Exactly,
you know?
exactly. I
Yeah.
think one of the, you and I will talk about some of the interesting sharp edges later on, but you know, right now a lot of that natural language it's English.
Yeah.
And so, it is still fair. It's confined to those who can prompt well in English. I expect that will improve with time. I'm actually very
Yes.
excited for that to improve with time. But really, this opens up the world of building, solving your unique problem with technology to a much larger audience than it ever has before.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think it's really, it's, and we've seen this, I think, in the last handful of years anyway, these lowered barriers to entry, right? And enabling people with limited coding experience to be able to actually do and build and create some really cool things. And that's exciting for everybody, right? I mean, it's exciting from a business standpoint, but it's also exciting for people who don't have that really elite skill set to be able to just, oh my gosh, look what I'm able to do. And if I can do this, what else can I do? And so I think it really opens the imagination there too.
Exactly. It's amazingly empowering for
Yeah.
people who are driven. They want to get things done, but maybe previously their barrier was like, oh, I don't have access to a software engineer, or
Right.
I've never had the really time to go learn to code. Now they can. And that's, I think, one of the things that really excites me most about this is
Yeah.
opening up the possibility for people with great expertise, great ideas, but they didn't happen to have that particular skill set.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'll take it one step further and say, oh my gosh, was years ago. I'm thinking like 5 years, 6 years, something like that. I happened to be at an event, and I was just talking with some of the people who were attending the event, and I think it was an automation vendor. It was Automation Anywhere. It was UiPath. It was at a time when low code, no code. It might have been Pega too. It could have been any one of those people, but my point is that no code and load code was just becoming a thing, and it was such a big deal and everything. And I happened to be having a conversation with a young woman who worked for whichever company this was, and she was saying, you know I had a pretty run of the mill, actually somewhat boring job. And then, when some of this functionality was introduced, I had the opportunity to play around with a little bit. And I realized that I could do things I never believed I could do. And so it changed everything about how I feel about the work that I do, how I feel about the job that I have, how I feel about the opportunities that I have, how I feel about the company that's giving me these opportunities. It was just like the glow in her face, the shine in her eyes. It was just such a wonderful conversation to be a part of. And I think that's really at play here too.
Absolutely. I think that's a great example. There's people have had, opportunity is not equal.
Right.
Everybody has come to life from a different path, with different intrinsic skills and capabilities and what they bring forward. And I think our world, our business world, our world in general has gotten very complex, where it requires deep expertise historically in all sorts of different domains to really take that intrinsic strength inside of you and really materialize that into something that makes you feel proud and you're rewarded and that you're doing something meaningful. And one of the things that makes me the most excited about this technology, and vibe coding is a great example of it, is a way to really unlock potential in people.
Yeah.
In a way that I think that our world had become so complex that it was hard.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's really exciting. I think there's so many things that are exciting about this. And, one of the things that I wanted to shift a little bit and talk about, Erin, is, we've got kind of several converging trends that have made vibe coding not just possible, but increasingly prevalent. Two that come immediately to mind for me are something that is, well known across the industry, sort of the persistent developer shortage that we've been experiencing for many years now, right? And the new reality that speed has become a competitive advantage. And I think that is something that is just, people are living and breathing this need for speed and worrying about it. It's keeping them up at night. What trends do you see driving the interest in vibe coding? And what do you think about the trends that I highlighted? Do you agree that the developer shortage is an issue and then this need for speed as a competitive advantage are also kind of key drivers here?
Absolutely. And as you know, I come from Amazon. I've been at Amazon for 25 years. We have had a phrase here: speed matters in business.
Yeah.
It's always been core to our belief. So a lot of this, we're like, yeah, it does. Speed matters. It matters to our customers.
Yeah.
It matters, and people care that organizations, that service providers are recognizing their needs and responding to them quickly,
Yeah.
right? That earns trust. That makes your customers feel heard. And when the competitive landscape is changing, when the world is changing, if you and your organization are not course correcting with reality, like with agility,
Right.
that also, like, one, it's hard for your business, but two, it's also, I think it's hard for your employees, right?
Yeah.
They're like, they see everybody else moving and you're not. But I think to your point, also so in the software industry, we've been prototyping quickly for a long time.
Right.
We've had workflow processes where we do rapid prototyping, then a long path to production. So this isn't particularly new for us, but this new dawn of the AI coding agents is scratching an itch that we've had for a long time.
Right.
You point out the appetite for skilled software engineers is insatiable.
Yes.
I have never encountered a business team or a development team that does not have a wish list backlog that is 5-10 times as long as anything they're ever going to be able to accommodate, regardless of how many people they bring in.
Yeah.
And we're only seeing that accelerate as people see, obviously this is not a new realization, but
Right.
this started with the Industrial Revolution. Technology allows us to serve our customers at increasing scale. And
Yeah.
ideally increasing quality, increasing personalization in increasingly meaningful ways. But that success breeds need for additional scale, which breeds need for additional technologists to just kind of
Right.
keep driving that scale. There's just not enough qualified people.
Yeah, yeah, it is a real challenge for sure. And I think, one thing, as technology evolves and as we entered into the age of AI, we've been experiencing more rapid market changes than ever before.
Yes.
And that acceleration is certainly not going to slow down. But we're at a time where speed to market actually trumps perfection. And that's really hard for a lot of people to embrace, but that is a reality. And so that failing fast and, test ideas quickly. All of those things kind of really deliver some pretty significant business value. And it, for I think for companies that have all sizes, you're Amazon, of course you're doing, you're iterating quickly and failing fast and all of the things that we talk about. But this is true regardless of what your company size is and what industry you're in and all of that sort of thing, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. And, obviously, I am super fortunate. I work at a company that has an incredible set of technologists here that
Yeah.
have been core to building out, what we are. But not every organization gets to have the technical bench we do.
Right.
But the other, I think, challenge that we're seeing in this space that AI is also sort of unlocking for us is that, you know, at scale software engineering is a very unique and distinct discipline in itself. And then there's whatever business discipline that you're working in, whether that's healthcare or education or transportation or retail or whatever. And having technologists who have both that depth of technical skill combined with the domain expertise that really would allow them to navigate delivering just the right delightful experience for customers, it's hard to find those unicorns.
Yeah, it is.
And so, we all have massive processes of how you merge your business ideas with your tech team and, sprint backlogs and epics and acceptance criteria and things like that. And what I see in this future that we're building right now is as we make at scale technical building a more accessible skill set, we enable people who have other domain expertise to at minimum do the initial rapid prototyping.
Right.
Which I think is really exciting because then you take somebody who has domain expertise in healthcare,
Right.
really understands it, and says, let's give you some tools to help you prototype some ideas. And I'm super excited about that possibility.
Yeah, I think that's really, really cool. I think that beyond everything else, I think that when I think about vibe coding, I think it represents a cultural shift as much as a technological one. And I'm curious as to your thoughts on that. And so in many of the conversations that I have on this topic, some of the shifts involve what I've heard called kind of the Snapchat generation of development. And I think the reason that this example, this analogy is used is because what Snapchat did is it normalized ephemeral, imperfect content, right? You didn't, people who are successful on Snapchat don't show up perfectly and don't get everything right. And, you don't showcase perfection. And I like that, I think that we see that with vibe coding and it kind of normalizes imperfect, rapidly iterated software. And so the question shifts from, is this architected correctly to, does this solve the problem right now? Kind of like you were talking about with your domain specific experts. Does this solve the problem I'm trying to solve right now? What other shifts do you see driving this interest in vibe coding, Erin?
So I think that you hit on I think the ephemerality one is a really great point. That the cost to prototype used to be very high,
Sure.
even if you didn't care super, have a high quality bar. Just the getting even a basic prototype out of the door was prohibitively expensive, and you had to really be very selective.
Right. Well, it took a lot of time too.
It took a lot of time.
Yeah.
And so you had to be very selective about picking the ones that you thought had the very best chance of success. And you were probably eliminating some of your sort of maybe bigger, crazier ideas because well, it might work, but the cost to try just feels too high.
Sure.
And so, if you kind of go with this nail it, then scale it mentality, right? Like, let me try it fast. Things, mechanisms and approaches like vibe coding allow you to test really quickly and see, is there a there with this idea? And if there is, then you can spend the time to say, okay, how do I scale this? How do I make this real? How do I make this big? Um, but if you're like, you're like, oh, well, that didn't work. What did we learn from it? Okay, let's go try the next thing.
Let's shift this way.
Right?
Yeah.
Really, I think has the potential of significantly lowering the cost of rapid experimentation.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. So now let's get a dose of pragmatism in here into this conversation. So, while vibe coding has proven itself valuable for rapid prototyping and experimentation, are we also realizing perhaps that it's not in and of itself a complete solution?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
But the whole point of vibe coding is you really don't care how it was coded. Now, what we know from running large scale secure software for a few decades is it actually really matters how it's coded
Sure.
when you're running this thing at scale for a lot of customers at a long time, right? And so vibe coding, at least right now this world is changing really fast, is not necessarily giving you a solution that you're going to say, wow, that's great code.
Finished product.
Yeah. And so it's, as I say, it's a good experiment. But, particularly for a lot of established tech companies, they have, very hard-won best practices in how they deal with security or how they deal with scalability or how they deal with reliability or even code consistency and things like
Sure.
that. And so far, vibe coding is maybe not hitting all the notes on that. Again, I do think that even that will change over the coming years, but where it's at right now may be not the most well-engineered systems.
Right. Right. Well, that makes sense. I
Right.
mean, we're still also pretty early days. So
Right.
I think there's also that's important to
Right.
remember.
But again, if you've been building software for a while, this is also not new, right?
Right.
We've always known that our rapid prototypes, once we prove them out, would take time to make production ready.
Right.
But that's not a vibe coding solution.
Correct. Yeah. You know, it's pretty clear in the conversations that I've had on this topic that vibe coding appeals to kind of two what I call powerful desires. And for non-developers, as we touched on earlier, it's the ability to finally build tools that they've always envisioned without learning years of programming, without having to tap a developer and find time on their schedule and for this process to take a very long time. And for experienced devs, there's the exciting promise of productivity gains, which, could be as much as 10x. So, and this gives them the ability to spend time on creative problem solving rather than, writing boilerplate code and other things that they would rather not spend their time doing. But one of the reasons that I wanted to tackle this topic with you is that I think that's also creating some anxiety. Like, what do you see in the conversations that you have with your peers across the industry about vibe coding? Do you see that it produces perhaps some anxiety among the ranks?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, changes can be scary, right? And we have to remember that everything we're doing here, there's people here, and there's people with, who've built careers, so we cannot lose sight of the people in these systems. That it's a critically important part, because people bring creativity to the table. They bring amazingly valuable perspective. They bring tacit knowledge that so far we haven't figured out how to make an AI deal with well.
Right.
And so, but anxiety is absolutely understandable. I think one of the corollaries that we're seeing here is, so to your point, we're seeing a lot of these, particularly the AI agent, where you can orchestrate multiple agents building for you.
Yeah.
This is resonating really, I think, best with our senior engineers. And
Sure.
one of the reasons why I think we're seeing this is as they've grown in their career, part of it was learning how to be a tech lead, where they had junior engineers that were taking on pieces of the puzzle. And so they had kind of already learned this sort of instructive capability. How do I explain what I want built so that someone else can build it. So we have an additional challenge ahead of us with our now junior engineers.
Yeah.
How do we help nurture that skill earlier in their career than they may have previously had it? Because one of the possibilities here is I empower my junior engineers sooner than they've been previously empowered to sort of scale.
Yeah.
Historically. But going back to that tacit knowledge, that those learned skills, how do we make sure that they're presented with those safe opportunities to kind of learn how to be directive, learn how to think through problems in the right way, piece them apart so that they can instruct AI agents in a way that helps force multiply them in a thoughtful way. So
Yeah.
this is a big thing that we've been talking about as an industry is we have always valued hiring junior engineers and growing them into amazingly capable senior engineers. That desire is not going to go away. That is like, they are our best people. They are like, they are the lifeblood of our technical organization.
Yeah. Well, they're the future of,
They're the
tech leadership too.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
I mean, at Amazon, we've got senior vice presidents who started here as intern engineers.
Yeah.
Right? It's, we have people who've done the full gamut of growth here. And so that is one of the larger conversations that I think a lot of our peers are having is how do we continue to effectively grow our junior engineers when maybe the sort of rote coding that we were using as training exercises, as growth exercises is now being done by the AI. What are our training grounds of the future? And that's, I think, something that we as an industry are still working through. And vibe coding is related to that. I think it may actually be beneficial in this space. As I say, when generally a senior engineer or somebody who's moving up the ranks of engineers, at some point we tap them and say, all right, you're the lead. And now I might be able to tap somebody a little earlier and say, you're leading some AI agents.
So, well, and what's cool about this too, Erin, is that, all of the data on AI adoption and use throughout certainly the enterprise, it has largely been more senior people. And part of the reason for that, I believe, is, and this is, I don't think, a hard one to get to, but it's like the more senior you are, the more experienced you are, the more quickly you can see how you can use this technology in innovative ways, right? You're not learning the job, the job backwards and forwards, right? And so I think that things like vibe coding, to your point, put this technology into the hands of less experienced, more junior people, but also help speed the learning curve.
It does.
And that's really cool.
And I think all of this is moving really fast. It's very nascent. And I think we have an obligation to be thoughtful about how we use this technology to help people grow, use this technology to help people explore possibility, to learn in safe ways. It actually has huge potential for that. And I think that, as you mentioned, the anxiety, it's completely natural and very understandable.
Yeah.
But I also think it could be tremendously beneficial.
Yeah, I agree. And to that point, I think often the elephant in many rooms today is the ongoing discussion about AI replacing engineers or workers in general, right? Versus empowering them. And I mentioned in their intro sort of the Renaissance worker concept and how this is a reality moving forward in the workplace. Can you paint a picture of what this looks like in practice as someone who's been in the workforce in the development area for a very long time? What skills and mindsets and capabilities do you think define what this new breed of developer is?
Sure. So obviously I've been in the industry for decades, right? And when I started at Amazon, it was significantly smaller. It was significantly less complex. And so when I was doing development, I got to solve whole problems, right? Front end, some back end design work, deployment, scaling, security, things like that. But over time, those specialties have become so unique that it's tough for even amazing people to
Right.
have all of those capabilities in their heads. And so, whereas I can say, oh, way back in the day, I was able to do it all, like
Right.
that's not a realistic expectation given the level of complexity we've seen, kind of emerge in the industry over the last couple of decades. And so this idea of, I can be a Renaissance worker and I can do all the things is just, it's been untenable
Yeah.
recently.
Sure.
But with, sort of assistive agents who kind of bring expertise to your fingertips, that suddenly reopens this, right? So as I mentioned previously, I am rusty at coding. Now I can use an AI agent to help me kind of shore up that capability. Or, you know, maybe, I am not great at doing statistical models or whatever, right? Like, do I have to go get a statistician or an economist? No. I mean, like, yeah, sure, if I'm going to do something really deep, of course, but I
Right.
can now do basic work with an AI assistant. And so I can, within reason, pursue my imagination, test out ideas, one in a very safe way, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't have to go pester somebody. I don't have to like go get on somebody's calendar to do
There's
it.
nothing to slow you down.
Nothing to slow me down. At least to the right now, probably through the exploration phase and
Yeah.
maybe sort of initial experimentation launch that allows me to prove out an idea.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
Again, over time, the capabilities are going to continue to improve and they'll get to the point that we can even take it well beyond ideas and exploration.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I know that you spend your life immersed in the world of AI agents. The reality is that they are quickly becoming ubiquitous and not just coding assistants, but autonomous agents handling complex tasks. When you think about this, and when you talk with customers and when you talk with people on your team, what are the biggest challenges that you think organizations need to prepare for?
I think the biggest, so there's a near term need and I think a longer term need. Near term, organizations really need to be giving their people permission to play.
Right.
These tools, they are, while very intuitive, they they are different. They're unique to work with. And having your workforce feel fluent and comfortable in this technology is important to open up possibility. Now,
Yeah.
that's the near-term problem. Our next generation of workers are going to be AI native.
Right.
So there's just those of us who are going to have to go through this transition, and we need to give ourselves collective time to do it. But longer term, organizations really need to use this moment to give themselves an opportunity to think about the difference between the work they do every day and what their job really is for their customers,
Right.
and give themselves the opportunity to re-examine how they do that work to deliver value. I think this is really going to change the way we do work.
Yeah. Oh,
And
absolutely.
we need to, it's not going to happen all at once. It's not going to happen without human involvement. But it is an opportunity for us to really say, like, why have we been doing it this way? And do we still need to do it this way?
What if we try
What if
and
we tried?
yeah, embracing curiosity and experimentation and change? I think those are all keys to not only having a successful career, but being a good leader and being able to create a culture around those things.
Right. And we are going to learn from each other. We will take those learnings and we will codify them into solutions. But I think one of the things that's so unique about this technology is that it meets people where they're at, and it really bends very well to how individuals work.
Okay.
So giving people sort of an out of the box solution, say, we'll just use this. It's going to work for some folks and not for others. So know that different people are going to use different tools in different ways. But I think that's a feature, not a bug.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Absolutely. You know, we talked earlier about the need for speed. And of course, every time I say that, I get an image Tom Cruise, which I really would rather not have. But anyway, the need for speed. So, but in today's world, there's actually a very real need to balance speed to innovation and that thorny thing that is governance. And how can leaders go about building platforms that can accommodate innovation without creating fragmentation? What's the balance between flexibility and governance, and how do you move fast while also being able to maintain some kind of stability? I think that's a a complex question,
It
but
is
I
very
think
complex.
it's probably something that you hear from customers all the time.
And I have a background as a program manager. I've been many things at Amazon. I tend to be a fairly well-organized person that likes things to be very clean. But one of the things that Amazon has taught me is to sometimes embrace a little bit more chaos than I think I would ideally want to do.
Yeah.
So, and this is going to be tricky for leaders, is to know when to embrace fragmentation, because that's where you see experimentation. That's where you're going to let sort of multiple flowers bloom. And when to then say, let's pick our leaders and let's pull them back together. And that is going to be a very tricky judgment call. So that, sort of the fragmentation thing, I would encourage folks not to give into that very initial visceral reaction of, I don't want any fragmentation, because I think that's where, going back to that experimentation, right? We learn a lot through experimentation. Sure. That said, for every organization, there are going to be non-negotiables. Are you protecting your customers' data, right? Are you protecting your intellectual property? Are you making sure your employees are well taken care of? There are very foundational non-negotiables that you should be thinking about making sure, like, what are your mechanisms to check that? So AI is obviously, one of the things that's making us ask these questions. It's not the only thing that should be making us ask these questions. Data security has been a thing for a long time. AI very much benefits from a strong security strategy, but it certainly emphasizes the need for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, there's clearly some industries like the financial industry and things like that. Their ability to embrace AI faster than other industries in some ways is predicated on the fact that it turns out they've been very security focused for a long time.
Exactly. They've laid a foundation.
Laid the foundation.
They don't have to go and create this. So I think, that's a great example. Healthcare as well.
Healthcare is another great example. And so certainly the industries that we're seeing further ahead in this, one, tend to be very data heavy, that have maybe been a little bit further forward in being digitally native and have been security focused for a long time. Also ones where areas where workflow, there's a good understanding of workflow. So a lot of times we're like, well, where should I use AI? And one of the questions is, well, do you understand what your workflows are? Do you understand where your bottlenecks are? And in particularly, where are you bottlenecked on things like human reasoning? That's a great place to think about AI. So if you don't have those competencies in your organization, you're going to be well suited thinking about how you build those. It's turtles all the way down. The good news is there's actually some really interesting solutions out there using AI to actually help improve security posture, help with data cleanup and governance. So it's, while you will need to proceed with caution if you don't have the right controls in place, interestingly, there is AI tech that's coming in to help solve some of these foundational problems too.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, let's talk just for a quick minute, if we can, about consumer technology. Are there lessons, Erin, that enterprise software teams could learn from consumer tech as we build these new human AI collaboration platforms?
Absolutely. I think one of the things that has maybe caught the software industry as a whole, maybe by surprise a little bit, is these product-led market motions, right? Where you're seeing, whether it's ChatGPT or Cursor or others, where individuals are saying, wow, this looks like a good tool for me.
Right.
And again, to those very personal fits of tools. And that, our industry has gotten to the point where we have a lot of, sort of large scale sales led motions and enterprise driven adoption and things like that. And I think as a software industry, we need to be, we'll say, embracing self disruption. We need to
Yeah.
recognize that people like to pick their tools. They like to pick their workflows.
They do.
And so how do we really think about catering to the individual while still solving those very needed governance and security
Right.
concerns that they're absolutely valid. They're foundation to like long-term trust in this technology. It's going to be a tricky balance
Yeah.
for a lot of software providers and for enterprises of like, wow, do I pick the ones that, the solution that came bundled with a big contract I had, or do I pick the one that all my folks seem to be using?
Listen to your users. That's my advice.
Users,
Listen to
exactly.
your users.
And so I think that for a lot of enterprises, this is a very new challenge for them.
Yeah.
And it's going to require, just like everything else that seems to be in this era, a step back and say, what's our job anyway? And how do we do our job differently in this world? And software procurement is going to change in
Yeah.
this industry too.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Erin, this has been so amazing, and you have given me so much time today, and I so appreciate it. As we wrap this episode, I know that there have been a couple of product launches, and I know I'm getting ready to write about a couple of them that are super interesting, and maybe I can even talk you into coming back to kind of talking in more detail about these things. But if you could just hit on briefly for me what those couple of new product launches are, I'd love for you to share that with us.
Absolutely. So there were two recent launches, one this summer and one actually just weeks ago,
Yeah.
that I wanted to share with you. So one is in our developer space. It's a product called Kiro. And we were talking about some of the challenges of vibe coding, the ability to sort of really influence exactly how the code got built and things like that. And so what we're building with Kiro and what we've released is a developer experience where you can do vibe coding, but we've also added this capability that we call spec-driven development. And it's sort of an augmentation of vibe coding, where I first sit down and think about kind of what do I really want to build? And I work with the AI to build out a spec. We come up with an architecture and a plan together, and then it starts coding based on that plan. And so what we're loving about this is kind of it provides a bit more structure to the outcome. We also have steering files and things like that get you a little closer to production ready than you would with pure vibe coding. So that's one that we're super excited about and would love to come and talk to you more about. The other is we just released a business user focused product called Amazon Quick. And this is a larger workspace that allows knowledge workers to really use agentic experiences across both what we're calling your structured data. So this is the stuff that you generally do analytics on, and your unstructured data, your emails, your documents, your Slack. So how do you have that GPT style experience at work with all of the knowledge? But when we talk about vibe coding, one of the things that I'm most excited about in that is we have no code experiences to allow business users to build agentic workflows and kick off agentic research projects with natural language. So you can build a business workflow with natural language that works against your data, integrates into your systems and things like that. So we'd love to come talk about that more, but those are two that I'm particularly excited about.
That is really cool. And in all honesty, I was just reading about this particular solution today and thinking, oh my gosh, this is so cool. I totally need to write about it. So I'm so glad that you were able to give us just some little news about it. That's awesome. So, Erin, I cannot thank you enough for hanging out with me today. That is a wrap for this episode of the Age of AI, and the vibe coding revolution has shown us what's possible when AI democratizes software creation, and it's also revealed the gaps between rapid prototyping and enterprise ready systems. The path forward is really interesting. It's not about choosing between human developers and AI assistants, it's about reimagining how they work together. And as organizations build the platforms and the practices and the people strategies for this new era, those who can balance innovation velocity with governance and quality and security, all the things we've talked about here today, will truly define the next generation of software development. And as you mentioned, Erin, the Renaissance worker isn't just someone who can code faster with AI. They are someone who understands when to move fast, when to slow down, and how to build systems that matter. I think that's really a cool way of looking at it. So, Erin Kraemer, thanks again so much for joining me today. Your insights on vibe coding and the evolution of the industry as a whole have been fantastic, and I so appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And I look forward to having you back. To our viewers and listeners, I'm Shelley Kramer, Principal Analyst here at Kramer&Co. Thanks so much for joining us today, and we'll see you again next time.